Live to tape.
Okay, so here we are. It's November 9th, 2016.
Yep.
You can probably tell by our voices what happened last night.
Yeah, I think they all know.
The night started fine. It started
Yeah,
great.
it
We
did.
had a great little get-together with listeners. Many showed up. It was a lot of fun meeting them and crying together. Taking pictures together. I guess a lot of people were eager to hear us put something out quick. And since a couple of us will be traveling very soon, we wanted to do this now to get some thoughts out. Where do we start?
I guess we should just start with Florida.
Florida, as
Florida.
Tim Russert said.
I
Bless
think
his soul.
when we were all sitting around last night at the bar, Florida was sort of the first harbinger of death. And we saw 538 predicting with some 82% probability that it was going to go red. And I think everybody expected it to go blue, even though we knew it would be close. But polling had been pretty solid in Hillary Clinton's favor. So that wasn't great.
Yeah. Michigan was a shocker too, as was Wisconsin.
So I think that's what happened is that after it became apparent that Florida was going to go red, we started getting nervous about North Carolina. And then it became like we all sort of looked at each other and said, okay, but wait, she has her blue wall, right?
Right.
Which includes Wisconsin and Michigan.
Yeah.
And those things were supposed to be her fail-safe. And those were the things that Nate Silver and every other professional pollster was saying. She's going to win if for no other reason than she has this blue wall. Well, then I think around 10:40, 538 posted that her blue wall was crumbling.
Yeah.
And nobody expected that. Like I looked over around the table at Laura and Matt, and my jaw was on the floor.
Yeah. We were all becoming steadily more horrified throughout the night, and I was trying to keep it together because, of course, we're at a party.
Yeah, we're with listeners.
Yeah.
And the idea was to have a good time. Everybody was drinking a lot, too, by the way.
Yeah, we all got
I'm not going to name
hammered.
names, but some people got very drunk.
Yeah, I got pretty wasted. A few shots of whiskey and a Donald Trump presidency will do that to a girl.
We were at the Andrew, I love you so much. You're amazing.
That was
you.
the least of it. I was basically escorted off the premises.
Yeah, we were. Well, I leaned over to Lisa at one point. I'm like, just keep it together for the listeners for like 5 more minutes, then we'll go.
Yeah.
But the other shocker was Pennsylvania. That was supposed to be clearly blue.
Well, it was when it was kind of going towards blue for a while, and then all of a sudden you just hear that it turned red automatically, like in 1 second.
Yeah, it went red pretty quick.
And
I
then it just stayed
remember,
red.
so we left the party, I left the party about 15 minutes early to try and compose myself. Came back here, by the way, and spoke with my family and told them how much I loved them.
Aww.
Because I was genuinely scared and upset. And then I think we finished watching the results come in here. At some point, I fell asleep with the results not looking good, but still with a little bit of hope. And then I wake up about, I guess it was 30 minutes later or something, and on the television screen it said, Clinton calls Donald Trump to concede the election.
Just surreal.
Yeah.
It was really kind of upsetting too. Like, I think Andrew, Laura, and I walked back to the hotel from the bar, correct?
Yeah.
And, half the reason why we wanted to come to DC for the election was to experience, like, what life is like during the election on election night. And it just could not have been any further from what I imagined it would be.
There was no life.
It was a ghost town. It was a ghost town.
Literally nobody on the streets.
The party we were at, there were a whole bunch of different tables there. It was pretty packed.
Yeah.
And by the time we left, it was pretty empty and pretty sad. But we were also planning if she had won to go down to the White House, which we actually ended up staying close by the White House in a hotel, and and that would have been fun.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I would not have wanted to be down there tonight. God knows what was happening last night.
Probably
Along the
nothing.
fence.
There's probably nobody
Well,
there.
but there could have been like Trump supporters. But yeah, I mean, Washington, like walking around DC yesterday on election day, it was a lot of people showing their support for Hillary with T-shirts. I didn't see Trump anything.
No.
So what happened?
So
I think what happened was that Democrats and progressives who are non-identifying didn't turn out to vote. If you look at the history of past presidential elections, you'll notice that other candidates, including Mitt Romney and John McCain, by the way, lost having more votes than Donald Trump has won. And they lost. They lost the presidency. Why? Because the other side just turned out more. Because Democrats turned out more. That didn't happen this time. In the grand scheme of things, Donald Trump, I think at last count, had about 59 million votes, 58 million votes.
Mhm.
That's significant and frightening, but not an excessive number of votes, really. If you look at past elections, presidents have won in the past in the mid-60s, and he failed by several million votes. The problem is that so did Hillary. Democrats just didn't turn up. They didn't show out. And my problem with the narrative that I'm seeing this morning is a lot of people very upset, very scared, understandably, saying this is just proof that our votes don't matter, that we tried so hard, everybody wanted Hillary to win. She won the popular vote narrowly, but she won the popular vote, and our votes don't matter. I want you to get the fuck out, if that's how you feel. Just get the fuck out. Because this should just tell you that your vote matters all the more. The reason she's not president today is because people didn't vote. Because our votes do matter. And if you're going to become complacent over this, if you're just going to take a seat and be a coward and not show up from here on out, then you deserve Donald Trump.
Yep.
Yep. Speaking of votes mattering, Gary Johnson got how many votes?
in Florida, especially.
Yeah.
That's been a big debate in the ensuing hours as well. Should third-party people have voted third-party in hindsight? Now, there are people on both sides of the debate. I think all of us agree that a third-party vote was a waste in this situation because of the high stakes, because of how close it was going to be. But others will tell you, F you, I can vote for whoever I want.
That's totally true. You can. But I will point out that Hillary lost Florida by, 170,000 votes?
Yeah.
And there were 250,000 votes cast for Stein and Johnson.
Yeah.
So just let that sink in for a moment.
And I think some people, I disagree with this narrative, but some people would say that not all of those votes would have gone for Hillary, that a lot of, historically, third party actually tends to lean more conservative. And that the people who vote third party tend to be Republicans and conservatives. So maybe if people hadn't voted third party, Trump would have just won by an even greater margin. That's some sort of the argument. I think historically you would have a case to make there, but that's not the case this election. This election, people were voting based on a protest vote, saying that they didn't like either candidate. They were both equally bad, and creating this false equivalency between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And a lot of people who did not want Trump, who are on Facebook today, right now as we speak, shitting all over Donald Trump and this result, voted third party. So I think that now maybe they'll realize that they shouldn't have. I don't think that this is a typical election where you can say, third party would have all gone Republican. I think a lot of them were liberals.
I think it was a lot of people who didn't want to vote for Donald Trump, but were too cowardly to vote for Hillary Clinton.
And some people genuinely agreed with Jill Stein and Gary Johnson, and if that's the case, more power to you. I get that. I guess I would just question is your personal belief worth it now?
Yeah.
Do you feel better?
Yeah.
Do you feel better?
Yep. When you protest vote, the only person who's hearing that is you.
Well, and everybody you tell on Twitter.
Yeah, well.
I think one of the most like surreal things now is like, well, what is Trump actually going to do? Is he going to try to do everything he said he's going to do? I don't think that wall is going to get built. There's not going to be a ban on Muslims. Is Obamacare going to go away? I use Obamacare.
Yeah.
Am I suddenly without health care?
I think that's a genuine concern.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think the wall and banning Muslims was hopefully, I want desperately to believe, was an awful sort of pandering to the baser instincts of the Tea Party. But I think it is a genuine threat that Obamacare could be overturned, because now, let's be clear about something. Not only did Donald Trump take the White House last night, the other lead here is that the Republicans kept the Senate, and of course, as we all knew, they kept the House. They now have control of both chambers of Congress and the White House. So what are they going to do with that power?
We still need a Supreme Court justice.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, that's another terrifying part.
And see, that's the thing. We were talking about, even assuming the best case scenario at this point that he only gets one term, we're stuck with whatever Supreme Court justices he puts in during that time.
Yeah.
Well, it makes me concerned that maybe, some of the people we thought were going to retire off of the bench, like Ginsburg and what have you, are going to stick it out till the bitter end because they're not going to want to be replaced by someone Trump nominates.
Yeah.
I think, Elisa, what you said earlier needs to be said about Donald Trump conceding. Whether he was going to concede or not says a lot about his character and what he might do as a president.
Yeah, exactly. So we were discussing amongst ourselves. I was saying that if this had gone the other way and Trump had won narrowly the popular vote but had lost the Electoral College, I think we'd all be waking up today with headlines saying that Donald Trump refuses to concede and is calling the elections rigged and what have you.
Yeah.
And that's not the way it went, but I think it really begs the question of what kind of executive authority are we going to be dealing with moving forward? Because if we're dealing with a person, because let's take policy aside, I think that Donald Trump is fundamentally unpredictable. I think that when he says something that he believes in policy-wise, you shouldn't take that to the bank. You shouldn't assume that's what's going to happen. He panders and he changes his mind depending on the day and who he's talking to. But the one thing that he has been very consistent about and very transparent about is some of his more authoritarian tendencies. That he gets power regardless of how he attains it, and he keeps power regardless of how he attains it. And so if you take somebody who is willing to question the fundamental way that our democracy works and that our elections work, you take someone like that, and you give them the power of the White House, what are they going to do with that? Are they going to let power go willingly? He has now the entire scope of the intelligence agencies, all of that at his disposal to use. That's what frightens me most. Not the policy implications so much as the authoritarian streak that he has.
Yeah. I'm so, I keep having, all of these things keep, flooding through my mind, what's going to happen to Obamacare? What's going to happen to the social safety net? What's going to happen to Roe v. Wade?
Immigration.
Yeah, what's going to happen to all of these things that we've fought so hard for?
Mm-hmm.
I look at, my little brother. He's, under Obamacare, he's allowed to stay on my parents' insurance until he's 26. What's going to happen if they get rid of that?
Yeah.
He works in a restaurant. They don't give him insurance.
Right. Yeah. And he'll and just the fact that Trump is following such a great president, such a progressive president, somebody who was intelligent and
classy.
Classy and
just a stand-up guy, really.
Yeah, just a good speaker. We were talking earlier about how Van Jones on CNN called it a white lashing. This is the white people coming back. I
really think that in some ways it makes perfect sense. We got a black president who experienced unprecedented levels of obstruction and endured a horrible amount of racism. It makes sense that what would follow would be a response to that, a reactionary response to that in some ways. And I do want to say, I think has, as frightened as we all are, understandably, I feel worse for the Muslims in this country,
Yep.
the
Mhm.
people of
Yeah.
color in this country, the immigrants in this country, and if you're if you fall into one of those categories, I don't even know what to say right now other than I'm sorry. And even though it probably feels this way right now, you're not alone. Not everybody here. Please don't take this, even though I know it seems that way, don't take this as a referendum against you. I think that you have a lot of allies. We love you, and we're not gonna let this asshole run roughshod over you and your family.
Yeah, I think it's important now more than ever to let our friends in minority communities know
Mhm.
that we've got their back.
And self-care is more important than ever right now,
Yeah.
too. Just like taking it easy, taking a break from the internet, from the noise of the 24-hour news networks.
I think
Yeah.
we're all ready for that.
Yeah.
A nice
I
break.
think I'm going to take a break from the
Yeah.
internet. for
I'm
like a
ready
week.
for it, but I'm not going to do it because I know this is so cheesy and lame to say, but
It's okay.
as somebody who is in not every way, but in many ways very privileged, I feel like I have a responsibility to be more vocal and to do more and to engage even further now because I have the privilege and the power to actually stand up and say something. Whereas the people of color, the Muslims, the immigrants, what they're being discredited and shit on right now. Do we really think that this president and his administration is going to listen to them? I don't.
Mm-mm.
But maybe they'll listen to me because I'm white and straight and everything else. So
Me too.
I feel exhausted, but I'm not ready to take a seat yet.
Yeah. No, and I completely understand that. And I think I was just saying that, like, sometimes you need a break from
Totally.
everything that's happening. You need mental rest. But I do agree with you. And actually, one of the things that makes me sick is that all these people who voted for Trump, or many of them, are going to feel vindicated by
Yeah.
being racist. Like, they will look at Muslims now and say,
Right.
we were right about you, America. America does not accept you.
Well,
Right.
yeah, that's
Because you
what-
saw this with Brexit, too. People started to treat people poorly after that vote went through.
That's what really makes me nervous too. Even the fact that we have to wait 4 years, that the people who did vote, who are, prejudiced, they are racist, they are now allowed to think that what their beliefs are is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now they are going to have 4 years of that. And they're going to have 4 years of being used to being told that this is good or this is okay and acceptable. And then we're going to have to fight so much harder after that to go back to the direction that we were
Yeah.
going before Trump became president.
Yeah, well, Elisa brought up a really good point earlier in terms of, hey, you guys have got it, GOP. You've got
Right,
it
let's
for
see
the
what you
next
can
4
do.
years,
Yeah. Well, and what I kept thinking about last night when I was trying to sleep was like, we are now saying we can elect somebody president who doesn't release his tax returns, who has clearly gotten into a lot of trouble in the past legally with his own businesses, who can be caught on tape. I mean, Billy Bush got fired from the Today Show for being a part of that. Trump sails to the presidency. We're letting all these things become the norm now for a president.
Yeah.
We allowed everything that happened in this campaign to be acceptable in all future elections.
Yeah, we legitimized it.
I think what it says is it's okay if you're a bigot. It's okay
Right.
if you cheat people out of their money. It's
Right.
okay if you admit to being a serial sexual predator. Those things are okay so long as you promise to cut our taxes, so long as you promise to bring back manufacturing jobs that, spoiler alert, aren't coming back. So long as you promise us the things we want to hear, we'll accept everything else.
And we talked a lot over the campaign about how all of this was becoming normalized. And this proves that it absolutely did. All these aspects did become normalized. One thing, by the way, we haven't talked about yet. We're recording before Hillary's concession speech. She did concede to Trump last night, but oh my God, one of the things I was in shock about last night was that Hillary had I said this to you guys, all the resources in the world. She had all the support in the world. She had the frickin' Bushes. She had her husband. She had the Obamas. She had Beyonce. and yet they still couldn't get the turnout. It's mind-boggling. They had the ground game too. They had the fucking ground game.
I really think I honestly think a lot of it has to do with, again, people not believing that their vote matters and that being a self-fulfilling prophecy, but also people thinking that she had it in the bag.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think there was this narrative of, there's no way this could ever happen here.
Right.
He's a very clear demagogue. There's no way that could happen in America. Look at everything that's against him. And so people sat out because they thought there was a bystander effect going on. Everyone assumed that other people would do something about it, and therefore no one did.
While Trump was creating urgency, it's rigged. You have to go out and
exactly.
vote. My aunt is a perfect example of this. I saw on Facebook the other day. She shared my now brother-in-law, who is a supporter of Trump, posted something, and she replied, "This is why the election is rigged. We all have to go out and vote." They created the urgency to get people to show up. We didn't.
I don't know how much more urgency we could have created, though. I mean,
well, I think the problem was this was Trump's to lose.
Yeah.
And people took that to mean he would.
Right. So Democrats don't have to go out and vote, or we can vote for third party.
It's an expectations game, like a lot of politics. You expect a person to win, and therefore you sit out because, of course, they're going to win.
Yeah. Well, to anyone who sat out on this election because of that, I hope you're happy about the choice that was made for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the choices that people made when they decided not to vote were also because of whatever state they were in, because they knew that their state was going to go against the party that they were going to vote for. So why would they vote?
What also concerns me was this trend towards vote swapping. I don't know if you guys saw this. I don't know how much of an impact it may or may not have had, but there were people using this complicated algorithm to find somebody in a swing state to switch votes with so they could vote third party in their own state and have somebody vote Hillary Clinton in the swing state. But, like, how do you guarantee that they're actually voting the way they're supposed to?
Right.
I would never trust another human being with my vote.
Right. And going off of that, too, I was shocked on Election Day where on TV, these reporters were still finding undecided voters who were walking into the polling stations.
Yeah, that happens every time.
Yeah.
I think one of the big questions now moving forward is going to be, all right, Republicans, this is it. You got what you wanted. You have, you control legislation in this country. What are you going to do with it? How are you going to behave moving forward? And are you going to be one united party? Are you going to rally around this sort of Tea Party base, or are you going to try and move back closer to the establishment Republicans like the McCains of the world? And I don't know what the answer to that is, but I think this election frightens me for no other reason than it really points towards the Tea Party having a lot of influence and control, and the mainstream Republicans sort of just tagging along with that despite knowing that it's wrong. I mean, John McCain did not like Donald Trump ever from the very beginning, but he still endorsed him anyway because he felt like the voters were for Trump, and so he would sort of, it's like that famous aphorism, like, oh, there go my people, I must see where they're going so that I can follow them. That's sort of the Republicans right now. They're looking at their voters and sort of following the voters instead of being the leaders that we sort of expect them to be. So I'm interested to see how the Republicans fare with this. In some ways, it's going to sort of be historic either way.
Yeah, I think that's how everyone's seeing it too.
We were talking about what to do for the show in the future because we thought we'd have less to talk about with politics. And we'll be talking about it more, but we are going to try to change up. Yeah, now that this hopefully is not, well, I don't even know what to say about it, but we're going to branch out more. We're going to be talking less politics. We're still going to talk about it, of course. We're going to talk about when Obamacare is repealed. We're going to talk about when the Muslim ban is in place. We're going to talk about when the wall is complete. But they're not going to be a focus.
It's not going to be the entire episode.
Right, like
Like
it has been. Like this one is.
Yeah, at least the silver lining that you could possibly get out of all this is that the election is over. We don't.
And yet I
have to
don't feel
deal
better.
Along with the
Doesn't-
Republic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always joked about the end of the Republic, and now here we are.
I blame
This is
Wiener.
our- this is
Still
our best
blaming
chance.
Wiener.
God, seriously, Anthony fucking Weiner.
David Duke tweeted last night, "This is one of the most exciting nights of my life. Make no mistake about it, our people have played a huge role in electing Trump."
Our people, meaning
The
white
Klan.
nationalists.
Right.
Tweeted something
I
else.
think this will be
Yeah.
known from this election will be known for many things, but something I saw also on Twitter. I think this election will be known forever as the election where the KKK, the FBI, and the Kremlin were all in agreement with who should be president.
Yeah.
If that doesn't tell you something, I don't know what does.
This is also the first time that an election has been influenced by another country. And it was,
by our elections
Our
have
election,
been openly influenced by Russia. It's
Well,
shit.
everybody take care of yourselves. Fight for what is right.
I think I will just end by saying this. I think a lot of people right now feel very helpless and very scared, and I understand why. I do too. But if you're wondering, what can I do now at this point? I voted, I paid attention, I did all the things that I thought I should do, and it still turned out this way. I would say, as trite as it may sound, read the Constitution and pay very close attention. Start learning more about the branches of government and what is and isn't allowed. Because I think, again, more than policy disagreements, what we need to all be on alert for and be holding Trump accountable for is how he treats the Constitution and things like, checks and balances. So, for example, what happens if he can't get legislation through? Is he just going to sign it into law himself? Is he just going to force a Supreme Court nominee on the bench? How is he going to handle his power? And the only way that that stays in check is if we're all very informed about what is and is not allowed. So know what is and isn't allowed moving forward. I think that's the best thing you can do, is just know what the Constitution says and what he can and cannot do. Because when the time comes that he breaches those things, it will only be us that can stand up and say, wait, that's not allowed.
Very well said.
Well,
Any other closing thoughts?
we love you.
No, I've been up all night.
Yeah, it's going to take
It's-
some while to process. If
I can't.
the processing's ever complete.
I don't think I've ever cried that hard about anything politics related.
Yeah.
I didn't think I
Like-
would at all.
Yeah.
Whether it was an upset or being
Yeah.
upset.
Yeah. No, I think the moment that I lost it was when Van Jones was talking about this being a white lash
yeah.
and how he's going to tell his children. And I was just like, fuck. I can't.
Yep. All right. Well, I believe this is this week's installment of Millennial. Apologies for
Yeah.
not a full-blown episode, but
We can't even right now.
we can't even. Yeah, we'll be back next week with more thoughts, and
Gathered ourselves. Better.
we'll still be hanging out, of course, in the Facebook groups and whatnot. So, yeah,
Take care of yourselves and each other.
Definitely.
love one another. Okay, bye everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.